Absolutely, it is a few minutes to 9 p.m. East African time on this 12th day of August 2024. Good evening and welcome to the Daily Report. I am George Maringa, live from our studios along Kiambu Road right here in Nairobi. Now, tonight we forget politics for a moment and we discuss matters education and especially the university funding model, rather the higher education funding model. And who best to have this conversation with than my guest tonight, who is Dr. Beatrice Muganda Inyangala. She's already here in studio. Please, you can come over and we have, a session before we, bring that entire conversation to our viewers tonight, because the university funding model is one that has been quite interesting and has shaped differently over time. Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
Brilliant. And I wanted to find out, first of all, is the scholarship portal open for Kenyans to be able to, go and access this funding?
Sure.
Where is it at?
www.h.e.f. Yeah.
Okay. .org.
Yes.
And how transparent will it be? Because of course this university funding model is one that has been a discussion for a very long time.
We have worked with the best statisticians.
Yes.
And the best internet operatives in this country.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that it's very professional. Very efficient.
Very efficient.
Yes.
Then looking at how then, the concerns that have been there, what percentage would government then be able to cover in terms of scholarships and also the other funding model as it is?
This is a government that is pursuing a bottom-up economic transformation agenda, lifting those of us who are at the bottom of the ladder in everything, including education. So for education, for our students from the families that require the most need, 95%, and I have said it over and over again, school fees will be as low as 3,000 shillings a semester. Yes.
3,000 shillings.
Yes.
And you shall be debunking, the figures.
Take that to the bank.
Take that to the bank.
Yes.
Smiling, that is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Her X handle is at Betty Muganda 17. You can post to at TV47 News. I am at George Maringa _. That conversation will be coming your way in a short while. Start talking to us. We've already seen your questions. Our SMS line is 22047, as well as our WhatsApp number, which will be on your screens shortly. But before then, here is a glimpse of what's making headlines tonight. Tonight on the Daily Report, in a significant turn of events, the Nairobi High Court has reversed its earlier decision that paused the implementation of the Maisha Namba. Let's find out what this means for you and I. President Ruto's new-look cabinet inducted, sandwiched between a public highly expectant yet skeptical of their effectiveness and an embattled president striving for results.
So this morning we had a meeting, a breakfast meeting with His Excellency President, who gave them clear instructions and advisories on what is expected of them.
And drama erupts in Nyamira as rival leaders clash in front of the president over where the proposed Nyamira University ought to be built, disagreeing both with the president and themselves, mere moments after extracting the promise from the head of state that the university will indeed be built.
Sasa tuendelee kujenga university hapa Kiabo Nyoro. Hii maneno imejia hapo.
Welcome to the program. Our sign language interpreter is Rhoda Nyamai. To our top story, where in a significant turn of events, the High Court has reversed its earlier decision that paused the implementation of the Maisha Namba. On Monday, the judge of the High Court, that is Lawrence Mugambi, annulled the suspension order from July 25th, citing the widespread and immediate negative impact on the public as a key factor in his ruling. Ann Odeda opens our broadcast tonight with the details of that report.
The High Court has reversed its earlier suspension of the controversial Maisha Namba, allowing the government to proceed with the rollout of the unique personal identifier UPI. This decision follows an appeal by the Ministry of Interior, which argued that halting the issuance of identification documents was negatively impacting a large portion of the population, particularly those just turning 18 years of age. The court, in its ruling on Monday, acknowledged the significant consequences of the suspension, emphasizing the backlog of over 1.2 million registration records. Previously, the court had halted the Maisha Namba rollout pending a petition by Haki na Sheria Initiative, which challenged the constitutionality of the new identification system. The petitioners argued that the Maisha card and related digital infrastructure were introduced without adequate legal safeguards, posing security risks to citizens. Despite these concerns, the court noted that a data protection impact assessment had been conducted, supporting the government's compliance with the Data Protection Act. Judge Lawrence Mugambi highlighted the government's efforts to address public concerns, while maintaining that any delay in issuing identification documents would severely disrupt access to essential services, including education, healthcare, and legal processes. The judge also remarked that the continuation of the Maisha Namba project would not only impede the ongoing legal scrutiny of its constitutionality. This coming at the backdrop of recent events, which have seen Kenyans greatly lament over delay in the issuance of identification cards. Ann Odida, TV47.
Thank you, Anne. Barely a week after the cabinet's swearing in last week, President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua have met with cabinet and principal secretaries at the State House, Nairobi, where the head of state impressed upon the newly min-meted leaders to the weight of their responsibility. And as Mike Kagwongo reports, the newly sworn-in cabinet secretaries have started a 2-day induction program aimed at providing them with a smooth start to their tenure in the nation's top policy-making organ.
Early Monday morning at the House on the Hill, President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua played host to cabinet and principal secretaries in a bid to provide necessary instructions on their new roles.
Father, I want to commit these men and women.
The head of state gave the CS instructions to stay away from corruption, operate with efficiency, and give priority to initiatives that will give young people jobs.
Make the people of Kenya your first and only priority. And don't allow personal issues to come in the way of your duty.
The president mentioned that the broad-based government was formed to bring Kenyans together and support the nation's transformational journey, tasking the team to take the lead in the fight against corruption and to communicate government's agenda effectively.
And we must work as one team. I listened very carefully when you took your oath of office. And it was about the Republic of Kenya. It was about the people of Kenya.
You know, when I look, I find Hassan Joho in the same cabinet with me, and Opio and I, and John Buddy. I appreciate that Kenya is great, and we must all learn to live with each other because you never know about tomorrow.
After the meeting with the president, the cabinet secretary started a 2-day induction program aimed at providing them with a smooth start to their tenure in the nation's top policy-making organ. The 2-day program taking place in Karen, Nairobi will help them understand their significant constitutional roles as state officers and the high expectations of the Kenyan people.
To know how the doctrine of public service, the role of the cabinet, and the role of the individual cabinet secretary when they are carrying out their assignments in their respective offices.
Meanwhile, Soipan Tuya has given up her eco-warrior boots to become the defense CS, while Duale, who was previously the CS for defense, has taken over the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. While handing over the ministry, CS Tuya underscored the importance of environmental stewardship and the need for unity in facing the challenges of climate change.
We have a periodic assessment of our forest reference levels, which should be coming soon. And that is the comprehensive appraisal of our tree cover and our forest cover. And that is when we shall know what movement we have made.
Our efforts in climate change mitigation and adaptation have been commendable. The National Determined Contribution NDCs and other strategies have propelled us forward in promoting renewable energy.
Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
And then now we have the...
Away from that, a General Service Unit GSU officer Calvin Omondi has been killed in the Manyata slums in Kisumu County under unclear circumstances. The officer was attacked and severely stabbed while in the company of friends. Omondi's family is now seeking justice. Anastasia Mukabi reports.
Grief engulfed the family of Calvin Omondi, a GSU police officer, after the police broke the news that Calvin was stabbed last night at Manyata slums in Kisumu County.
My cousin that I've been taking care of, Calvin Omondi, was killed in an unclear circumstance in Manyata.
The deceased family is now demanding for justice.
I came to the regional police headquarters here in Kisumu, and I've talked to the county commandant, and they have assured me that investigations are going on, and they'll all the people involved in this issue will be apprehended and brought to book.
Kisumu County Police Commander Kizito Mtoro acknowledged the incident and promised to bring the perpetrators to book.
Jambo ambalo sasa ningetaka kuambia jamii na familia ni kwamba investigation itakuwa tara na watu watapelekwa kotini. Kwa wakati huu tuko na watu karibu wawili wameshaandika statements tayari. Wametupatia leading information mahali ya kutuelekeza.
Anastasia Mkabi, TV47.
From the lakeside to the coastal city of Mombasa, where in Mombasa, law courts today the case against the prime suspect of the Shakahola massacre, Paul Mackenzie, and 94 other suspects was heard from today, the 12th of August, and shall be heard without pause until the 15th day of August, and again on the 9th to the 12th day of September this year. Anthony Mwangi with more details.
95 suspects in the Shakahola massacre may face life sentences as stated in Section 205 of the Penal Code of Kenya if they are found guilty of the manslaughter of 238 victims at Shakahola.
Even as the Honorable Court listens to the prosecution witnesses, we invite the Honorable Court to keep at its back pocket on the issue that there are currently no regulations on how faith should be exercised.
The massacre that continued from an unknown date in January 2021 up to September 2023 has seen more than 430 bodies exhumed and 422 witnesses coming forward to testify to the atrocities witnessed in Shakahola.
And our rebuttal will be the same, that in their exercise of their freedom of religion, assembly, and expression, there was no suicide pact.
Persons collectively agreed to engage in starvation or fasting, among other extreme practices, leading to the loss of over 429 lives in a manner that depicted direct and indirect suicide pacts between them aimed at such loss of life.
All suspects pleaded not guilty on all counts of manslaughter, which the prosecutor read to them in a process that took 4.5 hours. The court reiterated to parties that the proceeding will be uninterrupted and conducted on the day-to-day basis in order to accord justice to all parties, including Mackenzie and his co-accused who have been denied bond. Mwangi Anthony, TV47.
Thank you, Mwangi Anthony, for that. The youth across the globe are today being celebrated for their contribution in the society. They converged in different counties to commemorate this important day, as Mazden Wambugo now reports.
The youth are the leaders of tomorrow. This has been crystal clear as the youth recently came out in numbers to fight for what they believe is right. Vocalizing critical issues, they passionately address pressing matters like politics, climate change, unemployment, social justice, among others, with one aim: demanding action.
Right now we have a critical issue on hand. There is lack of access of commodities like condom, where if you see, most of those people who use condom are young people. Remember, you can't discriminate. You can't tell me not to access service, yet I have a right, reproductive right to access those services. Then if that thing is not there, what do you expect me to do as a young person, yet I'm sexually active? You can't tell me not to do sex, yet sex is a choice, but safer sex is fun.
Tutakuwa tunazikaa chini, tunajipanga kama kikundi, because already tuko registered, tutakuwa tunajipanga, alafu tunaanza kusota tu wenyewe, so that mtaenda akienda nyumbani jioni akona kama 200 at least ya kuboost familia kidogo.
The youth face dire challenges due to a lack of available jobs. The struggle for meaningful employment is a burden that weighs down their ambitions. Nevertheless, their spirit remains unbroken.
The theme of this year is click to progress. It's about digital jobs and digital innovations for our young people, and this theme would not have come at a better time for our country when we are doing big in terms of creating online jobs for our young people.
Leo imekuwa ni siku muhimu ama ni siku tofauti kwa sababu ni siku ambayo tunapatia fursa zaidi vijana kujieleza, na especially ukiangalia mambo ambayo yamekuwa yanatokea nchini ambayo yamesukumwa sana na wale wanaitwa Gen Z. So inamaanisha kuwa lazima wawe katikati ya mambo mengi ambayo tunafanya, na ni muhimu kukumbusha watu 75% ya Kenya ni chini ya miaka 35. Kwa hivyo hii nchi ni nchi ya vijana.
Indeed, wise is not wasted in the old, nor young in the youth. Mazden Ombugu for TV47.
Thank you, Mazden. Equity Bank has recorded a 22% increase in its interest income, rising from 69.8 billion shillings to 84.3 billion Kenya shillings, according to the half-year report presented today by the bank's chief executive officer during a meeting held at Equity Center in Upper Hill, Nairobi. The bank has also registered a 12% profit growth compared to the same period last year, largely driven by its subsidiary companies established in neighboring countries like the DRC and Rwanda. Overall, Equity has increased the value of its assets by 6%, now standing at 1.7 trillion Kenya shillings. The CEO emphasized the bank's continued commitment to serving and benefiting its customers every day.
But bank assurance is very different from when the tier 1 banks are at 13%, Equity is at 11%. 200 basis points is because of its approach towards, and if you look at net interest margin, banks are at 8, we're at 7. Despite having a lower cost of funds, at net interest margin, we're still doing poorly because of our decision, a differentiating decision that you start with your customer. You give them an umbrella when there is rain, not when there is no rain. And there's been a lot of rain over the last 2 years. A review of the yield 91 days rate has moved from 16.38 to 15.8. So essentially, our customers can look for a reduction, almost double the reduction of central bank of approximately 0.4%. So we'll see that, and that then brings in more and a greater affordability.
You'll see with the pressures around interest rate, as James has mentioned, Equity has been quite considerate around what do we charge the customer, and we've intentionally lagged our interest rate to the market, as shown by that graph. You'll see back in 2023 Q1, interest rates were at 11.4%. We then deliberately, as the pressures on interest rate came through, we ensured that we lag that behind so that we get to support the customer to where the average loan interest now is at 13%.
Residents of Endo in Elgeyo Marakwet East constituency have hit the streets in protest over the alleged negligence of the engineer from Kirena Construction Company who was awarded the contract to construct the road from Kilangata Tot to River Kupasi. The project began in 2021 and they now claim that it's only 8% complete. These residents are now calling on the relevant authorities to take action and ensure the project is successfully completed, helping them avoid transportation challenges in the area while also demanding the termination of the contractor's contract for failing to deliver on the project.
Hii barabara yetu imestagnate kwa sababu ya huyu resident engineer inachukua njoku. Contractor anafanya kazi, kesho kutwa inakuja kurudiwa hapo. Tunashindwa kwa nini inarudiwa leo, kesho inarudiwa mahali fulani. Tunataka barabara yetu itengenezwe haraka iwezekanavyo, na ikiwezekana huyu jamaa anaitwa Njoku. Huyu Njoku atoke hapa Marakwet na alete sisi resident engineer mpya akuja tengeneza barabara.
The contractor has done little work, 8% for those 2 years, and it is only 2 months that the project is yet to end.
As Kenya joins the world in marking World Elephants Day, the day was marked in style in Meru County, where members of the community living along the wildlife corridors came together in a bid to highlight some of the challenges they face from the elephants, whilst tabling some recommendations in ensuring peaceful coexistence between elephants and the community. Our reporter Elizabeth Atieno was in Meru for the celebrations and filed the following report.
Elephants are nature's gentle giants, majestic creatures that symbolize our nation's heritage. However, these important animals have faced a myriad of challenges which time and again threaten their existence. From human-wildlife conflict to habitat loss and climate change, and not forgetting poaching, which accounts for approximately 20,000 deaths among elephants every year, all for their magnificent tusks.
As a country, we are really working very hard, very smartly to ensure that we reduce poaching. And I want to take cognizance that our Kenya WS, our agency KWS, has done a very good job with many other stakeholders that are coming on board.
Dr. Erastus Kanga, the Director General of Kenya Wildlife Service, maintains that Kenya's elephant population has seen remarkable recovery, growing from 16,000 in 1989 to 36,280 in 2021. However, communities bordering the wildlife corridors like in Ruri, Meru County have raised concerns over the delayed compensation from damages suffered in encounters with wildlife. This despite the government through the State Department for Wildlife maintaining that speedy attention is being applied to address this challenge.
Wana shamba karibu na msitu. Hiyo ndovu iliingia kwa shamba yangu, ndovu mbili, wakaharibu mandizi, wakaharibu malenge na wakaharibu njugu zote, nikaachwa bila. Sikuwa na hata nini ya kulea watoto, nikosa chakula.
Mara nyingi hata kuna wakati tulifunga barabara ya hapo Njoro Iboro usiku, tukakaa hapo mpaka saa 6 ya usiku. Na asubuhi yake tukasema tutaandamana juu ya huyo ndovu last year. Lakini ngemwande na asubuhi yake alikuja, akatuambia kwanza hiyo rora itawekwa soonest possible.
As per the end of the financial year, last year, we actually paid 980 million to compensate to the loss of life, loss of property, and those people who were actually maimed.
Today marks the 12th celebration of World Elephant Day, and here is some interesting facts about these behemoths. Kenya boasts of 2 types of elephants, that is the Asian elephant and the African elephant, which happens to be the world's largest land animal that can stand up to 3 meters high and weighs up to 6,000 kilograms. Elephants can live up to 60 to 70 years and are known for living in close family groups as they form strong emotional bonds with other members of their herds. Elephants are also playful. They like to throw water into the air, roll on ground, and even chase other animals simply for fun.
The only problem with elephants is when they get threatened. And they can only get threatened when you get too close to them, when you get too close to their calves, when you get too close to the young adults. Young adults are a bit aggressive.
As we celebrate elephants on this 12th day of August, it is important to remember that elephants demonstrate what we consider as the finest of human traits like empathy, self-awareness, and social intelligence. All the more reason we as a society should find a way to peacefully coexist with these magnificent creatures. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47 from Meru County.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that wonderful report. This year's World Elephants Day in Nairobi was marked by the Wildlife Direct organization at the Nairobi Serena Hotel, where they aired out pressing issues that have contributed to the reduction of elephants in the Amboseli ecosystem. Agnes Jindo gives us more.
For time immemorial, elephants have been known for their majestic physique and large tusks that have continued to put them in danger of being poached.
There's things happening in Amboseli regarding super tuskers.
Today being World Elephants Day, the Wildlife Direct organization took to press to air out the causes of the decrease in the number of elephants within Amboseli National Park, with the super tuskers as a major issue of concern.
Why these elephants are unique. They are some of the largest tusked elephants in the world. They are few. They are a unique genetic population.
According to experts present at the Serena Hotel in Nairobi, only 10 super tusker elephants remain in existence, with 5 of them being killed last year in the northern Tanzania region following the release of permits for trophy hunting. Super tuskers are the elephants with the largest ivory tusks.
As many of you have probably heard, and it's been in the international media, Tanzania has begun hunting in a range of the Amboseli or Greater Amboseli Kili West ecosystem.
The conservationists continue to inform the public on the measures they undertake to keep track of some of the cross-border elephants in order to reduce the number of killings witnessed before.
We usually put GPS collars on specific selected individual elephants. For example, the iconic elephants we are mentioning here, the matriarchs of various families, and the GPS collars give us hourly fixes.
The meeting highlighted the conflict between Kenya and Tanzania on the matter of protection of elephants and to further educate the public on the importance of the elephants.
Tanzania to protect these super tuskers, because we only have 10 of them left. I am always saying that these elephants are worth more alive, and we need to come together as young people to protect them.
World Elephants Day was significantly marked here in Nairobi Serena Hotel, with the main agenda on finding ways on reducing trophy hunting in northern Tanzania. Reporting for TV47, Agnes Jindo.
Thank you, Agnes Jindo, for that. President William Ruto's 3-day tour of Nyamira and Gusii counties has started today, but not without some controversy on the ground, as each of the MPs in Nyamira demanded that the proposed Nyamira University be built in their constituency, as our reporter Gombo Alfayo updates us.
Governor, how are you, my friend? President William Ruto continues his tour of Gusii region, with this program starting in North Mugirango constituency, where he laid the foundation stone for the construction of a dormitory in Kiabunyoro High School.
Na tuko na pesa bilioni 1.4 1.4 billion shillings ya watu wa Nyamira kuwajengea mashule watoto wenu. We are going to improve facilities in 68 schools in Nyamira County.
Hundreds of the area residents who attended the Kiabunyoro meeting insisted that the president should first ratify the building of Nyamira University in North Mugirango before talking about any other matter of development.
Tulikuwa tumekubaliana na huyu mjumbe wa hapa kwamba hii university ikuje hapa. Na kwa sababu sasa ameenda kunitangaza kwa raia, sasa maneno ndio hivyo.
Meanwhile, leaders from the larger Nyamira County immediately got into disagreement with the President Ruto's declaration that Nyamira University be built within Kiabonyeru ward, a matter that triggered a verbal showdown before the president.
Ile Commission of Higher Education ile report iko nayo ilisema university weko hapa Kiabonyeru. Na unajua saizi sitakuwa na uoga wowote.
Sasa amelia hata kabla technical report ambayo ilikuwa iletwe na Gusii University na Commission for University Education ifike, ameruka hiyo akasema yeye alipewa report peke yake. Akasema sisi tumetukana yeye kwa matanga. Kitu amesahau, alitangaza kwamba mulikutana kwa shamba yako kwa matanga.
Present at the events was Gusii Governor Simbarati, who is ODM's party new deputy leader, who urged all leaders to embrace or prioritize development. Arati criticized Wiper party leader Kalonzo Musyoka for claiming that the ODM party has joined the government. Arati is striving to clarify that ODM has simply donated some of their key members to the Kenya Kwanza regime to help them achieve their proper governance.
Sisi hatujaingia kwa serikali, lakini tumepea watu wetu wafanye na kazi. Let us strengthen.
Tomorrow, the president is expected to lay the foundation stone at the cancer treatment unit in Gusii town, as well as inaugurate the Keroka Hospital and also launch various roads within Gusii County. Today's tour by President Ruto ended with the launch of electrification of homes in Nyangeni area of Nyaribari Chache constituency. Reporting for TV47 from Nyangeni in Gusii County, I'm Kombo Alfayo.
Sports news brought to you by me.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back. It is 39 minutes past the hour. Thank you so much for staying with the Daily Report. As we did promise you, tonight you're having the conversation on university funding. And who best to have this conversation with than the lady at the helm of the State Department for Higher Education and Research, that is Dr. Beatrice Muganda Inyangala. Thank you, ma'am, for staying with us.
The pleasure is mine.
And welcome on your debut on TV47.
I'm happy that you have me today.
Indeed, and great. And earlier on, we did talk about the portal where the students can and Kenyans can access these scholarships. Where is it?
Before I mention the portal, yes, allow me to thank the media, because we launched a media campaign on 5th of August. By that time, only 79,038 students had applied. Through the media campaign and also engagement on WhatsApp groups and virtual meetings by our universities, yes, we have had an increase of 27% in terms of the new applicants. So right now we actually have 106,493 students who have applied. Significant increase.
Okay.
And from past experience, while we did place 153,997, only 80% usually apply for funding. 20% pay. And so our estimation is that 122,634 students will apply eventually. So as we are speaking right now, we only have a gap of 13%. And so my call to action is that all these remaining students, who are only about 16,000, should apply for funding. We do not want to leave anyone behind, because we are a government that cares. And we have 3 websites where they can apply. Okay. The first one is www.hef.co.ke. The other one is www.helb.co.ke. And the final one is www.universitiesfund, universities in plural, .go.ke.
Okay.
Yes.
Brilliant. And these are, in as much as, they sound plans that have been made or put in place to ensure Kenyans access higher education, especially in the universities. The backdrop is the Presidential Working Report on education, higher education. And part of these recommendations have been made, and as a country, we've seen these recommendations going and gathering dust in shells. In trying to consolidate and resolve this issue of this funding model, what programs or what recommendations would you be picking up specifically from that report?
Those recommendations on enhancing funding for universities. Because what came through during the Presidential Working Party is that universities were becoming insolvent. In particular, 23 out of the 40 public universities were becoming insolvent. And so a solution had to be found. Let me just demonstrate this using some figures.
Sure.
When the differentiated unit cost of programs was determined, a cost like medicine, for example, was about 700,000. The current cost of medicine is 612,000. So the government committed to pay 80% of that. And that would have been 489,600. But by the time we started serving in this government, the government was only meeting 48% of this obligation, which was 293,760. So that leaves a funding gap of 195,840. That's on the government side. What about on the side of families? And this is also very important in clarifying what everybody believes, that school fees has risen. It hasn't. Because even at that time, families were supposed to pay 20% of the cost of the program. So if medicine currently is 612,000, parents were supposed to pay 122,400, which is 20% of the program cost. However, as we have heard, that was not the case. They were paying, the students were paying 16,000. That's 8,000 one semester, 8,000 one semester. That was the expectation. But in real sense, as we have had vice chancellors tell us, even on mainstream media, there were additional administrative costs, like the cost for library, the cost for field trips, the cost for medical, registration, all of those put together. Then on average, students were paying 50,000. And so if you add the 50,000 on the 293,760, you still find that there's a gap. Because then, on the side of parents, there's a gap of 72,000. And on the side of the government, there's a gap of 195,000. Put together, this is about 268,000, a funding gap for one program, for one student. So because of these funding gaps, it became increasingly difficult for universities to offer quality education. It became increasingly difficult for universities to recruit highly trained academic staff or support their staff who do not have PhD qualifications to upgrade their qualifications. We know that the student population kept on increasing. Universities were not able to hire staff at the rate that would match the increasing number of students. Even in terms of facilities, universities were not able to expand the facilities to match the increasing numbers. And so there would be congestion in the classrooms, cutting down on the number of field trips, for example, required to expose the students, basically the number of practicals at times because of lack of reagents, all those inputs that go into quality education. So the question is, should the government have allowed this to continue? On the side of lecturers also, some universities like Egerton were paying 50% of salary to the lecturers. And it is not until we took office that we started paying the lecturers full salary. You can imagine a lecturer that cannot meet their obligations. They come to class, they are demotivated. How are they going to get the student to realize their best potential? So when we came in, it was a real difficult situation. And this had been reflected correctly in the Presidential Working Party report. And the need for reform was then suggested, that how can the stakeholders come together then to fund education adequately? We then came up with this formula of funding education based on what we know as best practice in the Public Finance Management Act. You share the cost between present and future generations. And you share the cost between the different stakeholders. So the stakeholders here, we have government and then we have parents, okay? And we know that parents are of different means. Naturally, in the world, we are not equal. Differentiation is part of the human population, okay? And so one of the problems with the all funding model was that everybody paid the same. Whether you are rich or poor or middle class, everybody paid the so-called 16,000, which we know by now it wasn't 16,000, it was an average of 50,000. And I don't think that was fair.
Okay.
Yes, equity demands that those who earn more pay more. And those who need the most support should be supported.
Talking of support, PS, the means testing tool then for that would determine how a person or a prospective student pays. How does it how is it defined in terms of poverty levels and also the amounts that they can be able to receive in terms of funding?
Okay, I'll just explain about this means testing instrument for a while. Yeah, because it's really complex.
Yeah.
And it has been designed by the best statisticians, as I said, in this country. Okay. So we look at several variables that determine a person's means, a person's, ability to pay. One of the factors that we look at is, for example, where you stay, location of your residence. If you stay in a city, is it the, estates like Karen, or is it, informal settlements, or is it Buruburu, Westlands? So we have Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that show the poverty indexes of those areas. And understandably, I would have my house manager taking their child to a school in Karen, right? Yes. So when you look at the school where this child went, my child would be going to Karen and my house manager's child would be going to Karen. So what will differentiate us? When the KRA produces their data based on my PIN, it will show what I earn. It will also show what my house manager earns. So automatically, I jump into band 5 and my house manager remains in band 1. I'll use another example. Okay. My village, I come from Malava, a village called Shirugu, and generally there's a lot of poverty. So if you identify me from Shirugu, again, amongst the residents of Shirugu, automatically I would seem poor. But again, when we produce the Kenya Revenue Authority data, then I will be categorized in band 5. So the type of school the child went to in primary and secondary also will be looked at. So those who went to private schools, obviously they would be rated as of higher means. But at the same time, if they can produce evidence that they went to these private schools, but they were sponsored they had a sponsor, they had an Elimu scholarship, or they had they went through a Harambe, then that is also put into consideration. We also know that there are private schools in informal settlements which are really define low means.
Yes.
Again, that is put into consideration. We look at aspects like orphans, where children do not have both parents, or where they have single parents, or where there's sickness in the family. Okay? So evidence can be produced of medical reports, which automatically mean that these students have to be treated differently. But at the same time, the formula excludes, those of higher means, because some would definitely be having insurance that then takes care of their bills. We also look at the number of children, other children in the family who are going to school. And so this could be going to primary school, secondary school, or university. For the university, we have the data at the Higher Education Loans Board and Universities Fund. And for high school and primary school, we have that data stored in NEMIS at the Ministry of Education. So these are some of the parameters we look at to then weigh where the family falls in terms of their income. Yes.
So all this sounds, in very practical and in terms of, efficient rather.
Yeah.
When you look at then this means tool, first of all, how updated is it? Is it very updated, or when is the last time that it was even tested with the current trends as we can see?
We first applied this means testing instrument with the KCSE 2022 cohort.
Okay.
So after running it for 1 year, in June, we retreated to evaluate and strengthen this tool. We looked at the weights allocated to these variables that I have just explained. And the way we did it actually included members of the public.
Okay.
So we brought in variety of stakeholders, from university professors to general members of the public to students, to really just reflect and tell us how important these variables were in determining the level of income of a family. And so using these weights and very complex mathematical formulas, we were able to get average weights that we built into the model. So what I'm trying to say is that this model has actually been strengthened following the experience of the first cohort. And I'm confident that this time round, we are going to accurately identify these students according to their means.
Why are private university students not incorporated in the new funding model? Because there was some chaos that erupted 3 days ago, saying that they were at the Kenya School of Government where they were advocating for inclusion.
First of all, let me just clarify that we had infiltrators who were actually not students who came to disrupt that meeting. So they had a different agenda. But that said, the principle we have in funding education is that the owners of the institutions mobilize scholarships. And then the government, allocates the loans. So if you look at government, the owner is government. If you look at the private institutions, they are owned by trustees. And I want to congratulate private universities because they have done a good job sourcing scholarships for their students.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these private universities students have been incorporated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they are
in the
their access loans. Loans.
So before there has been then that deficit of about 3.4 billion shillings that is owed to private universities where government-sponsored students are going. It has not been allocated in the budget, has it?
Well, I started explaining about the differentiated unit cost.
Yes.
And what you are bringing up just raises the folly of the differentiated unit cost and the old model of funding. Because government was not able to live up to its obligation, obviously due to the tight physical space that is facing countries worldwide. You know, it's not just Kenya. So up to now, the government owes public universities 137 billion. The government owes private universities 51 billion. So what I'm trying to say is that it is not only private universities that are owed, even public universities are owed. And so we have always had this debate about these pending bills that are owed by public universities, the 75 billion. Because you see also, if the government had come through for public universities fully, then these bills would not actually be there. So the point is, we had to confront our realities. And this was not going to continue. We were not going to continue living a lie, because eventually we were going to close our universities. And hence, a different approach to funding universities, where we say, look, if you really are needy, let us fund you up to 95%. And if you are able, we still appreciate the fact that you're a taxpayer, and so the government will come through with 60%, but you pay 40%. Is that not fair?
And you mentioned that a percentage, and I saw someone ask a question on X when you said, you were coming. Let me just try to retrieve that. I'm sure you saw that question as well. How comes I'm paying more than 41,000 Kenya shillings per semester, and it's, and it's not a medical cost despite being needy, which can be confirmed by the papers when I've applied for both government scholarship and HELB. I am just rejecting this. It's another loot hoop for politicians.
No. I want to assure...
His name is truly Lewis.
I want to assure Lewis that if there was any problem in their categorization, there's an appeals process, Lewis. You log into the portal and lodge an appeal. You'll be expected to provide some documents to support whatever you are claiming. So for example, if the issue is that you went to a private school, but you were sponsored, whatever may have caused that problem, if you provide adequate information, your case will be reviewed. And Lewis, feel free to drop me an email. The ministry's, the State Department's email is open. It can be found on the Ministry of Education website. Feel free to drop me an email, and I will address your issue. I will address your issue.
Would you like to give him that email?
He is in university, so he should do a little assignment. Go to the Ministry of Education website and retrieve my email.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's now take a short break up here. So when we come back, we continue this conversation. You can see your feedback coming. 22047 is our SMS line. She is at, her handle on X is at Betty Muganda 17. I am at George Maringa _ at TV47 News as well. Use the hashtag Daily Report, hashtag University Funding. You'll also have an opportunity for you to call in live and ask your questions to the PS. Do stay with us.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. You're going through some of your feedback. We're still with PS for Higher Education and Research, that is Dr. Beatrice Muganda Inyangala. Thank you so much for staying with us. There is the issue then of school fees in terms of how much one is owed to universities, both private and public, and then how much then each student is supposed to pay, because I do not believe that school fees is something that should be hidden under wraps. In other countries, the school fees is available on the websites of these countries.
Yeah, let me begin by emphasizing the fact that we have made university education so cheap, especially for the parents who require the most need. It is actually cheaper than high school fees.
Is that so?
Yes. So for students who attended national schools, they were paying 53,540. Okay? For a student taking a Bachelor of Arts, okay, Bachelor of Arts in one of the universities that we sampled, yeah? The highest they would pay, the highest parents would pay in Band 5, and those are parents like myself, it's 48,960 a year. So that means 24,000 roughly a term. Yeah. Okay? Then the next band, they would pay 36,720. Okay? Now, any child going to a high school that's boarding in Kenya pays 40,000. So that is still cheaper than that. Okay? 36,720. If you divide by 2, that's just like roughly 18,400 a term. The third band would be 24,480. That is 12,000, 240 a term. Band 2, where government is paying 90%, this student would only pay 12,240, Bachelor of Arts, sampled from one of our universities. And so the fees per semester would be 6,120. And then we go to the 3,000, the most vulnerable. Here, where the government is shouldering 95% of the cost. The parents only get to pay 6,120. 3,060 each semester. Let's also look at how the figures look like for medicine. I know that when most parents got that letter with a 612,000 for medicine, they were shocked.
Yes.
But I want to allay the fears of parents. and say, look, if you require the most need, if you're most vulnerable, the government will meet 95% of the cost of this 612. And as a parent, you will only pay about 30,000. So that means 15,000 in semester 1, 15,000 in semester 2. And questions have been raised about parents who are so needy that even this 30,000 is a lot.
Absolutely.
We have the upkeep that is availed to the students. So in band 1, the most vulnerable, they would receive 60,000. Okay, so this is 30,000 first semester and 30,000 the second semester. So for that student who really is very vulnerable, they can still afford to get something from this upkeep to help meet the cost of their programs. So let me not go through, the entire range, but for band 2, it would be like 61,200, which is 30,000 each semester. Again, quite affordable. But now for my child, and the professors, I'm the peers of professors, so I always make a reference to my professors. If my child was undertaking a medicine course, they would pay 244,800. So that means 120,000, a semester. And really, how much am I paying for my children to go to private school right now? Or how much are some of the parents who are able paying for their children to go to private school? A lot more than that. So asking them to pay, 120,000 is not really asking too much. Yes.
You talked about, the Kenya Revenue Authority on the question of the funding on, the debts owed to both private and public. If you could run through again.
Yes. Okay. So I think the question you want to ask is, what are we doing about these bills that we owe as a government to private and public universities? You will recall that there was a pending bills committee, and these bills were submitted to this committee. The committee is working through them, and at an appropriate time, they will be able to advise government.
Would you know the figures that are owed to private universities and publics?
Yes, I already told you 51 billion for private and 137 billion for public.
So then, KRA, what data would they be relying on the salaried population or the taxpayers in the country that are registered to then run this means to be able to then determine the funding model, or rather how you'll be able to offer scholarships and also funding to Kenyans?
So we have the income tax range.
Yes.
And for those families that earn 5,995 shillings and below, that is very easy to get from their PIN, records with KRA. And those then are categorized in band 1. And then those that earn 23,670 up to 5,995, those would be in band 2. Then those that earn up to 70,000 would be in band 3. Those that earn up to 119,999,000 would be in band 4, and 120,000 and above, those would be in band 5.
Okay.
Yeah. So that data is very easy to retrieve. Yes.
Yes, there are concerns that the ministry, the government didn't pilot this new funding model, so that then the consequent action would be the reduction in enrollment, even as you call on Kenyans to apply. Was it piloted?
Like I said, in developing this model, we actually involved parents, we involved students, we involved lecturers, we involved members of the public at large to, suggest and discuss weights. So in that manner, we did not determine these weights arbitrarily. They were actually determined through a very widespread selection of stakeholders. Then I want to say that through the first year of implementation, the number of, the percent of students who applied through the appeal process were just about 10%. And they provided the documentation that was needed to look at their means again, and only 5%, were found to be credible. So really, an instrument that performs, at 95% level of efficacy,
okay,
95% level of confidence, that is a very strong instrument. But that be as it may, that was the first time that we were implementing this instrument. And so we retreated in June and looked at it thoroughly, invited stakeholders again to review the weights assigned to the variables, like if you're an orphan, if you live in informal sector, if you're into a private school, all of that. So again, we reviewed the weights based on the input of stakeholders. Yes.
So it was done last year, or when was
the first time we applied this was last year, because remember the president launched it in May last year. Okay. So the KCSE 2022 cohort were all funded through the new funding model. And I want to say, without any fear of contradiction, that there was no noise then. Because we shall be bringing those students who are funded through this model to this studio. They are very happy. They are very happy.
They're very happy.
Yes.
Okay. And it is funded according to how it looks on paper.
Yes, it is funded according to how it looks on paper. Like I said, there were a few cases that were felt they were not categorized appropriately. And obviously, I have explained. So like, for example, if you went to a national school and you were supported, but you did not provide evidence that you are supported, then, there would be a problem there. And so through the appeals process, when additional information is shared, then we categorize these students. But again, going forward, we shall actually do visitations to confirm the status of these students.
So the 95% efficacy was determined by the ministry?
It was determined by the number of those students who felt that they had been miscategorized and appealed.
And appealed.
Yes.
The appeals were successful?
5%.
5% of them?
10%, about 9% appealed, 5% were successful.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had some students say that perhaps there's corruption and the appeals process may not be effective. I want to assure the students, I want to assure the parents that we have a very efficient mathematical model. So when this data is inputted in this model, it's automatically calculated. You just get it on the tap of a button. So the issue of human error, the issue of the system being manipulated is not there.
Okay.
Yes.
The issue of then this university's PS looks like we may have bitten more than you could chew in terms of the number that you have. They increased from 10 to 42, when there was the clamor for universities in every county. Looking at the efficacy then, and there have been suggestions even in the working report of merging the universities. Is that an option that the ministry could be able to consider, so that then that increases specialization in certain courses, like we see, whereas the US is a developed country, so that then universities in, say, a certain area specialize in these agriculture, medicine, and all that?
Yeah, I think the questions here are two. The first one is about, do we have enough universities?
Okay.
Actually, we are just operating at about 19% in terms of enrollment in our universities. And our target is to move that up to 30%. So what does that mean? It means that any excess capacity in our universities will be utilized. And don't forget that we have just launched the recognition of prior learning.
Yes.
So that means that anybody with a skill, that skill can be recognized, rated, and they can be facilitated to upgrade their education if they want, including, enrolling into universities.
Okay.
So as a country, we still need to expand access. And so this excess capacity is good for us in terms of the opportunity it provides for those who are out of school and who still desire, and it's very favorable for them to access university education.
Okay.
Then there's the issue of niching, universities establishing their niche, okay? So initially, of course, when we started, universities stood out with certain specialization. And when there was a very high demand for education, then of course they started expanding and becoming comprehensive universities. But I can assure you that we are winding right back there. But the question of access, okay, quality and affordability is very delicate. And it is not an easy question to address throughout the world, you know. Would you choose to have, you know, a few very high quality centers of excellence and leave out everybody else? So it is about striking a delicate balance.
Between quality and quantity.
Yes.
Okay. So then when you look at the issue of the whole sustainability of this new funding model, how sustainable is it? The other one seemed more, the older model seemed a bit sustainable. This one, you know, there have been arguments and reports that, you know, it could be a bit unsustainable. I
don't understand your definition of sustainability. I just told you 23 of our 40 universities were insolvent. Is that what you define as sustainability? Anyway, it was not sustainable at all because, you know, universities were not able to meet their obligations. You know, they were not able to remit pay as you earn, they were not able to remit SACCO, you know, deductions from the lecturers. They were not able to pay their debtors, suppliers on time. So for me, that is not sustainability, okay? But we have done some projections, and within 3 years, with the new funding models, universities should be able to cover the pending bills and become afloat, and, you know, then be able to enhance the inputs that go into providing high quality education. In terms of sustainability, I can tell you, for scholarships, every year we just need a little bit extra to fund the scholarships because of the increasing number of the student population each year. Because, you know, those that graduate, then we save some money from those that are graduating, which then feeds into the system to support those that are coming in. For the loans, we need very heavy investment into the Higher Education Loans Board. And we are exploring many options, including the option that works for Malaysia. You know, in Malaysia, the Higher Education Loans Board does not depend on government at all. They floated a bond and they got some angel investors, you know, investors who then buy and are not in a hurry to get back their money. And so those are some of the options we are looking at so that, you know, HELB can have enough money to support this funding system.
Whereas it is important to, you know, have universities that are spread across the country, is it also, you know, would the ministry, would your docket be willing to ensure that some universities, such as those that have maintained a certain way of specialization, continue doing that, so that then, you know, as much as there is the whole issue of accessibility and increasing the number of universities, there's still the issue of ensuring that it is quality, in as much as we are trying to balance with ensuring that everyone else gets the access to higher education.
You know, our mission really is to provide a quality, affordable education that's equitable and accessible. And we are working at that. And this new funding model is one way of raising the additional resources that we require to improve on the quality of our education. You know, quality is expensive. Quality doesn't come cheap. And we all agree that we need to enhance the quality of education. And that will come with additional resources. And quality, we need quality everywhere. And that's what we are working at.
Yeah. Evans is asking, ask Daktari a random one. For a student taking computer science at Egerton, Njoro, how much will they pay?
Computer science?
Computer science, yes.
So that would range between 250 to 300,000
per
year. Yeah. And previously I have been asked why universities, you know, charge slightly different. You know, it would be more or less the same, like the difference would not be significant, but there would be some difference. And I have said, it all goes with the inputs that go into that program, okay, in terms of the teachers, their qualifications, their numbers, the library, how well equipped it is, how many excursions they take outside, you know, of the university, how many practical sessions. All these inputs are costed, and that then determines the cost of the program. And allow me again at this juncture to just emphasize that the cost of the program is like a budget in the house, okay? What is it going to cost to run this house this month, okay? So maybe the budget for the house is 20,000 shillings. Mama may go to Chama and get some 5,000 shillings, throw in there. Baba might, you know, get some 10,000, throw in there. Maybe they have a son who works, you know, who will throw in another 3,000. So that is the same way we are looking at this. There's the cost, but then there's who meets this cost. That is when we have the government, and then we have the household. So the households only meet a proportion of this cost.
Of this cost.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a question here. Over 70,000 students are set to join university this year. Could miss out on government scholarship under the new funding model. The Ministry of Education says it hasn't received funds to cover them. What do you have to say about this?
No, that's really very simple, because money is usually availed as it's collected, okay? So as we collect the money, so then the exchequer is released to fund the students. As we collect more money, you know, we go into supplementary budgets and additional resources are availed. So I am not worried about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
The funding gap of 48 billion shillings, how is that going to be addressed as well?
A funding gap of 48 billion?
Yes.
No, I'm not aware of a funding gap of 48 billion shillings.
All right.
But what I have just said is that whatever budget we have, okay, money is availed from the exchequer as it becomes available, okay. So if we have whatever resources we have now, they will move us up to a certain point, and we will have a supplementary, and there'll be additional resources.
Okay.
Yes.
Edwin is asking, what happens to the loans of university students who defer courses, or I dare say at times get deregistered for one reason or the other by the institutions? Do you still go after them despite them finishing school?
If you took a loan, okay, in a bank to start a business and the business crashed, would the bank come after you or not? Yes, they would still have to pay. And maybe this is the, you know, negative motivation they have to try and complete their studies. Yes, the only thing is that they will not be harassed for as long as, you know, they don't have a job, but they keep their account open, they keep in touch with help and just share their circumstances. Nobody is going to, you know, harass them or go after them to pay. But when they get a job, yes, they would have to pay.
Do you think we need legislation that would say redefine and explain, because in the Constitution, basic education is what, primary education is what is free. What would then ensure that Kenyans actually look forward to not only going to university, but also participating in paying, you know, the amounts that you're talking about, the 3,000s, the 8,000. What would we need to make it free?
So there's some science behind basic education being free, because the rates of returns to society are high. When you have a literate population that is able to read and write, understand, instruct at this level, but the private rates of return at the university level are 32% to the individual. And so that really is the principle behind the expectation that somehow, somewhere, the costs of education at university level has to be shared. Yes.
Austin, in 2022 alone, we saw the UN deregister over 30,000 students, a great number of whom who had not completed their studies. This is in line with the loans, university loans. What would be your response to, you know, such actions by activities? I mean, such actions by universities to try and, you know, recover and look for this funding?
You know, it would be very difficult for me to comment without knowing really the details of the case, because you live in this world and you know people are deregistered for different reasons. Some may be deregistered because of some malpractice. Maybe they also abandoned, school for some time, because every university has its rules and regulations which students have to abide to so that they can be retained within the system. Some may have failed, so without really knowing the details, it would be very difficult for me to comment.
To comment about that?
Yeah, with confidence.
Okay. So, and in terms of, funding, we have so many bursaries, we have so many funding opportunities, especially for students. As we get this conversation to a close, where is there a possibility that cook-ups, that their help and everyone else would be able to be merged into ensuring that then this funding is available in quote-unquote a seamless manner?
That is already happening to some extent. Remember, these funds are protected by law, and so the only way we have money to access them is through collaboration. There are some counties that are collaborating with the Higher Education Loans Board. There are some constituencies that are collaborating with the Higher Education Loans Board to avail these resources to students from their constituencies. And so my call to action is for more counties and more constituencies to collaborate with the Ministry of Education to avail resources for the students to enroll and participate in university education affordably.
Okay. Yes, you can speak to Kenyans to that camera and talk to them about what the government envisions to have or to see with this new model in 2025. And perhaps when you have this conversation next year, what will you ideally have expected to see within this rollout?
Yeah, as I've indicated, in the past, we've had our students, especially those from less resourced families, excluded from some programs which they are not able to pay for. But now, with this new funding model, there is support that ensures that every student everywhere can participate in any program, irrespective of the cost. And so going forward, we want to see more representation across all the programs and more representation in all careers from all strata of society. And that really is what the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is all about. Lifting those at the bottom of the ladder and creating more equality and empowerment for all Kenyans. Absolutely. And education is the great equalizer. Trust a government that wants to hold your hand to help your children access education irrespective of your circumstances.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Beatrice Muganda A. Nyangala, the PS for Higher Education and Research in the Republic. Thank you so much for speaking to us on the Daily Report.
The pleasure was mine.
Absolutely. Our sign language interpreter has been Rhoda Nyamai. My name is George Maringa, wishing you a good night. As always, stay safe and be kind to one another. I'll see you tomorrow.